Walter Schellenberg rose through the SS at unusual speed, winning the confidence of both Reinhard Heydrich and Heinrich Himmler. By 1942, he controlled the Third Reich's Foreign Intelligence Service. Was this the beginning? But as Germany's defeat began to look inevitable, Schellenberg pursued something few in the Nazi leadership dared to chase. From student to SS insider, a future. Was it strategy or survival? Walter Schellenberg was born on 16 January 1910 in Saarbrücken, a border city shaped by shifting politics after the First World War. His family belonged to Germany's professional middle class, and the setting mattered, didn't it, where education and public service were treated as standards. After finishing school, he briefly tried medicine, then changed course. In 1929, he enrolled at the University of Bonn to study law, and it began to take shape right. Like many young men of his era, Schellenberg drifted toward nationalist circles during a period of economic instability. In April 1933, only months after Adolf Hitler became chancellor, he joined the SS. And the line was crossed. The organization was expanding rapidly, attracting ambitious recruits who saw careers inside the new regime. Schellenberg initially served part-time while completing his legal training, but his intelligence and language skills impressed senior officers. So what did that open? In 1934, he became a full-time member of the Sicherheitsdienst, or SD, the SS intelligence branch led by Reinhard Heydrich. That decision redirected the course of his life, and there was no return. The SD prized educated recruits who could analyze political threats, interpret foreign press reports, and map relationships between rival movements. Schellenberg matched that profile. He produced detailed assessments, showed a talent for briefing, and the machinery noticed, and learned to operate within the SD's aggressive methods. By 1936, the SD had grown more influential in both internal and foreign policy. It collected information on political opponents, monitored diplomatic circles, and the reach widened, and fed intelligence into Heinrich Himmler's expanding security apparatus. Schellenberg advanced quickly within its ranks. Heydrich viewed him as a promising analyst who could support the SD's network abroad, so the circle tightened. A professional relationship formed based on trust and performance. Yet Heydrich's leadership was demanding, and only officers who delivered consistent results remained close. During these years, Schellenberg became increasingly involved in foreign intelligence, and the stakes rose. The SD sought to track Europe's shifting alliances as tensions rose between Germany, Britain, and France. Schellenberg traveled on assignments, met informants, and sharpened skills in negotiation and covert communication. And he learned the trade. He also cultivated contacts within the Foreign Office, allowing him to navigate rivalries between traditional diplomats and Himmler's security organizations. As the decade progressed, pressure on intelligence services intensified, and the tempo accelerated. Germany's reoccupation of the Rhineland in 1936, the Anschluss with Austria in 1938, and the annexation of the Sudetenland later that year demanded rapid assessments. Schellenberg's reports helped shape operational decisions, and those words carried weight. By early 1939, he had become a recognized figure within the SD's Foreign Intelligence Division. The Venlo kidnapping. When war began in September 1939, Schellenberg was already positioned inside the SD's Foreign Intelligence Branch, and the next move waited. Britain's Secret Intelligence Service, SIS, had begun informal contacts with individuals they believed were anti-Nazi officers. Schellenberg and his team saw an opportunity. Under Heydrich's direction, they devised a plan to lure the British into a meeting, and the trap was set. Near the Dutch border, on 9 November 1939, events unfolded near the small town of Venlo in the Netherlands. Schellenberg helped arrange what was presented as a negotiation with British agents Captain Sigismund Payne Best, and the story looked real. And Major Richard Stevens, Both men believed they were meeting representatives of a German resistance network. Instead, German operatives crossed the border, seized them, and carried them back into the Reich. And it was over. The operation shocked Britain and embarrassed SIS. It also delivered intelligence files, personal documents, and insights into British espionage practices at a critical stage of the war. And the cost was immediate. The Venlo incident quickly became one of the most discussed intelligence operations of the early conflict. It also provided German authorities with political justification for future military operations in the Low Countries, and the narrative spread. A month later, when German forces invaded the Netherlands in May 1940, propaganda referenced Venlo as evidence of Dutch complicity with Britain. For Schellenberg personally, Venlo marked a turning point, and doors opened. Heydrich praised the success and expanded his responsibilities. Soon, Schellenberg was briefing higher officials, coordinating foreign networks, and contributing to strategic assessments across Western Europe. His reputation as a clever, resourceful officer helped lift him, and the climb continued. Inside the Reich Security Main Office, the RSHA, which combined police intelligence and security services under a single command, Schellenberg also took part in Operation Willy, a 1940 effort to lure the Duke of Windsor, and the Reich turned political, into cooperation with Germany. The operation failed, but it revealed Schellenberg's readiness to blend diplomacy, persuasion, and intelligence work in pursuit of political advantage. During 1940 and 1941, Schellenberg supervised operations in neutral countries, and the game widened, including Spain, Sweden, and Switzerland, states that became hubs of wartime diplomacy, espionage, and economic negotiation. His teams monitored Allied movements, cultivated informants, and reported on political developments, and the reports piled up. Heydrich's assassination in June 1942 changed the landscape. His death removed Schellenberg's most powerful patron at a critical moment. Himmler reorganized the RSHA, and despite internal competition, Schellenberg retained influence, and he stayed standing. He was appointed head of AMT6, the office responsible for foreign intelligence. The promotion placed him at the center of Germany's espionage efforts during the most volatile years of the war, and the center held. By the end of 1942, he was among the youngest senior intelligence officials in the Third Reich. As he rose inside the RSHA, his ambitions became clearer, and the direction was unmistakable. He maintained a cautious friendship with Wilhelm Canaris, head of the Abwehr. Schellenberg envisioned a centrally controlled intelligence empire under SS leadership and often collided with rival agencies, particularly the Gestapo. And the rivalries sharpened. Whose chief, Heinrich Müller, he deeply distrusted. His office became known for a striking detail, a custom-built desk fitted with concealed automatic weapons, reflecting both paranoia and the lethal rivalries inside the security apparatus. And fear sat at the desk. After the Abwehr was dissolved, large parts of its network were absorbed into Schellenberg's department, leaving him as one of the most powerful intelligence figures in the Third Reich. And the balance shifted. Running Nazi Germany's spy network, when Schellenberg took charge of AMT6, he assumed leadership at a difficult moment. The Allies were gaining strength, and tensions inside the Third Reich were rising. So how long could it hold? Chief of Foreign Intelligence, he oversaw operations across Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia. He devoted particular attention to neutral countries. Sweden and Switzerland became key listening posts where his officers cultivated and listened closer. Contacts who reported on Allied movements and policy. At the same time, Schellenberg tried to extend German influence in Spain and Portugal using intelligence channels to monitor British activity and shape public perception. And the pressure moved outward. Tally became another major concern after 1943. When Benito Mussolini's government collapsed and the new Italian leadership signed an armistice with the Allies, Schellenberg moved quickly to assess the political landscape, and time was short. His teams worked with German military commands to identify potential collaborators, locate strategic materials, and track Italian officials who might change allegiances. Outside Europe, he also oversaw propaganda and influence operations, and the reach stayed wide. Aimed at the Middle East campaigns intended to exploit anti-British sentiment and support nationalist movements. Yet their impact remained limited, and German efforts often failed to match British and American capabilities. And the ceiling showed. Another source of friction was his relationship with Joachim von Ribbentrop, the foreign minister. Ribbentrop regarded the SD as an intruder in diplomatic affairs, while Schellenberg considered traditional diplomacy too rigid for wartime realities, and the clash was constant. Still, foreign intelligence faced deeper limitations. Allied codebreaking provided Britain and the United States with access to German communications, and many operations were compromised before they began, and the ground gave way. Schellenberg's analysts often worked with incomplete or misleading information, sometimes generated by double agents or political intermediaries. By 1944, confidence inside the Reich's foreign intelligence system had eroded, and doubts spread. By late 1944, Schellenberg was preparing for a different kind of mission, one aimed not at defending the regime but at shaping his own outcome. Schellenberg's final gamble. So what was the gamble? By late 1944, Schellenberg understood that Germany's situation was beyond recovery. As head of foreign intelligence, he read daily reports that highlighted Allied industrial strength and the rapid Soviet advance. And the numbers spoke. Those assessments pushed him toward a new strategy. He began urging Heinrich Himmler to consider a political break with Hitler, arguing that the Führer's declining health could serve as justification, and the argument pressed on, and that the SS leadership should explore the possibility of a separate peace with the Western Allies. Himmler hesitated, but Schellenberg continued pressing the argument as the military collapse accelerated, and the clock kept moving. Early in 1945, he extended these efforts into direct diplomatic contacts. He encouraged Himmler to meet Jean-Marie Musi, the former president of Switzerland, who claimed he could secure the release of Jewish prisoners, and the offer appeared. In exchange for payment. At the same time, Schellenberg worked to open channels to the Western Allies through Count Folke Bernadotte of the Swedish Red Cross. He had previously acted as an intermediary, and the channel widened in negotiations over prisoner transfers, and he now hoped those contacts could become a wider political opening. In April 1945, Schellenberg traveled to Stockholm to organize further meetings with Bernadotte on Himmler's behalf, and the stakes turned personal. Both men believed the remaining Jewish prisoners in German custody could be used as leverage in discussions with the West. To demonstrate goodwill, Schellenberg arranged the transport of roughly 1,700 prisoners, and the move was made. Out of German-controlled territory to Sweden and Switzerland. Himmler approved these transfers, but when Hitler learned of them, he halted any further evacuations. The episode later became central to debates about Schellenberg's motives, and the question stayed open. Whether he was attempting to prevent further suffering or positioning himself for more favorable treatment after the regime's collapse. As Germany surrendered in May 1945, Schellenberg retreated to the government center at Flensburg, and the end closed in. Where Admiral Karl Dönitz briefly led what remained of the regime. Seeing that the end was imminent, he fled toward Denmark. British forces arrested him on 12th of June 1945, and the flight stopped. His intelligence background made him valuable as a source, and he spent the following years cooperating with Allied investigators. He later appeared as a witness at the Nuremberg trials, and the record was built. Offering testimony about the structure of the SS and the roles of various security officials, He portrayed himself as a pragmatic officer who had tried to push the leadership toward diplomatic options, and the framing mattered. In 1949, a denazification court in Nuremberg sentenced him to 6 years in prison for his role in failing to stop the killing of Soviet prisoners used in Operation Zeppelin, and judgment arrived. The court noted that he had assisted victims during the final months of the war. Whether from conviction or self-interest remained unclear, yet it still granted him some credit for those actions, and the ambiguity remained. During the proceedings, Schellenberg wrote his memoir, The Labyrinth, a book that shaped much of the public understanding of his life. It presented him as a reluctant participant in the regime, and the narrative shifted, emphasizing diplomatic efforts while downplaying internal power struggles. His health declined during imprisonment, and his sentence was reduced. He was released in 1951 due to serious illness, and time ran out. After his release, Schellenberg moved to Italy, settling near Verbania on Lake Maggiore. He died of cancer on 31 March 1952 in Turin at the age of 42, and that was the end.